Perfect. Alrighty. Well, I think we are good to go ahead and kick things off. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Friday morning. As I was just saying, Mona and I are super excited to have all of you to go through a climate transition workshop. We both know better than anyone that the job search is hard to navigate, it's tricky, it's ever changing. And so hopefully today and over the next few months, we can provide some clarity and some guidance to help make this transition a little bit less daunting. Cool. So that hello, my name is Natalie Lavery. I am the marketing lead at Climate People. I'll get into who Climate People is in a little bit, but wanted to just give you a little bit of a background on myself. Started my career in grassroots environmental advocacy. Absolutely loved having the climate impact of my work and really genuinely caring about the work that I was doing. But boots on the ground campaigning was just not the best use of my skill set. So ended up leaving, got a job in tech, and liked the work that I was doing, but not having that environmental or that climate impact was really hard for me to care about what I was doing, quite frankly. So then I came across Climate People and it opened my eyes to the whole world of climate tech and haven't looked back since. It's a awesome space where I can really use my traditional marketing skill set for something that I care about. And that's something that I'll get into a little bit more today. But hopefully, my story going from caring about what I'm doing to working in big tech and then kind of bouncing back from there gives you some inspiration for the fact that there are lots of different jobs in climate and you don't just have to be an environmentalist or a scientist. You can be in marketing, you can be in sales, whatever it may be, and you can still have that quote unquote climate job. So, yeah, super excited to be here. And thanks again for joining us today. Over to you, Mona.
Hi, I'm Mona Johnson. I've been a career coach in private practice for about 7 years now. My background is in mental health research and academia, and for a long time, I didn't think the climate space had a need for my skill set. Fortunately, more and more job seekers are making the jump to climate jobs, and many are needing support, coaching support. I'm thrilled to be with you here today. Thanks, Natalie, for having me.
Yay. Thanks so much for joining us. Super excited to bring in fresh perspectives of people who have done this work in other industries and feel like that adds so much value. So really appreciate you reaching out and willing to do this with us today. Cool. So about Climate People, if you have never attended any of our events before, want to take this time to introduce Climate People and who we are. So we're a recruitment agency. We operate as any traditional recruitment agency would in terms of business model. So yeah, get jobs, find candidates for those jobs, kind of place it at that exact same dynamic. But we only work with companies that are working on a climate solution. So any climate solution, whether it falls into any of the ones you can see on the bottom of the screen, we will help those companies hire and hopefully get more people working on climate. That being said, recruiting is only half of our business model. I don't do recruiting. I still have a job here. My job is really, we only have 14 or so jobs posted at any time. And the rest of the people that we talk to and chat, we still want to help get jobs in climate, even if it's not directly through one of our jobs postings. So that's my job, create resources, do events like this with Mona, and hopefully just inspire more people to learn about climate and give them all the skills that they need to get a job in climate. So yeah, that's Climate People. And how about Mojo Career Coaching? Oops.
So, Mojo is a full service coaching practice with a focus on climate job search designed for career changers. Most of my clients don't have climate experience and need support with personalized networking strategies, storytelling, job search materials like resume, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters, and interview prep. With a master's degree in counseling, I also assist job seekers with imposter syndrome. This is common among career changers, and I'm sure many of you can relate, climate anxiety.
Definitely. Super important. Cool. So while we're not waiting for anyone, I was going to say why we wait for people, but why don't you just drop in the chat what made you sign up for today's session? Do you want a climate job? Do you want to learn more? Do you just want to fill an hour on your Friday? What is it? What made you sign up for today's session? Let us know. Anyone? Anyone? Transition into a climate job, looking to land and grow a career, looking for a new job, career shift, looking to transition after 20 years, transitioning. Well, I think we're getting the gist of it. Most of us are here to transition into a job. Perfect. That's why you should be here. That's what we're hopefully going to help you go through today. Cool. So, as you likely know, if you are here right now, this is not a one-part session. This is a four-part series, but we're lucky enough to have Mona join us for 4 whole hours. So, it's going to be once a month on kind of all things transitioning into climate work. Obviously, it's still going to be pretty high level as we only have 4 hours and this content could take hours, 12 hours. But today we're going to focus on identifying your career interests. Next month, we are going to focus on a deep dive into transferable skills, kind of the buzzword of transferable skills, yet a lot of people don't even know what it means and no one explains it. So we're going to do the work of explaining what that actually means. And then in April, we're going to do the art of unlearning. As you've likely known by now, the climate job search is very, very different than the traditional job search. And there's some things that you must unlearn to do this right and enhance your chances of getting a job. So, we're going to talk about some of the things that you should unlearn and what you should replace that unlearning with. And lastly, some tangible and practical tips to bring everything we covered to life. So, how can you network? How can you make connections? And how can you really kickstart your job search? As you probably noticed, none of this stuff is actually on directly applying for jobs. It's more the philosophy and kind of getting yourself ready to be in the headspace and have all the skills to really apply for jobs and do it correctly. So it's kind of the pre-steps before applying to jobs that we're going to focus on in this series. But yeah, it's 4 months. So if you haven't registered for all of them, it is the same link that you registered for this one. So make sure you're attending those and we'll send out recordings. So even if you can't attend every session, still register for the session and then you'll get the recording for it. Cool. So a little bit more about today. Mona, you want to cover this?
Sure. So it looks like we have a great question from Angel. She says, can you share an example of the kinds of things that need to be unlearned? So as Natalie mentioned, the climate space is quite different, and it requires different strategies on building traction in a job search. So a big surprise for a lot of people is that it requires a lot of networking, reaching out to people you don't know in the industry, at your target companies, to people at all levels of an org. So reaching out to founders, hiring managers, recruiting professionals, peers that you might work with. Those are usually a good start, working with your peers. But it does require more networking. So that's something, a lot of people will just apply into the abyss on the job boards. That's something that needs to be unlearned. And then we'll teach you what you do need to learn with networking and other things. So networking is a big one. What do you think, Natalie?
Yeah, I was just to say applying for jobs. It seems a little bit silly, but that can't be your strategy in climate. So yeah, you probably should apply to some jobs, like balance it out. But the vast majority of the strategy is actually not applying to jobs. It's talking to people, as Mona said. And then another huge one is niching down. I'd say a lot of times people tell you to narrow your focus or to broaden your focus in a job search so they're not limiting yourself. Whereas in climate, that actually could hurt you if you focus on all climate and you're not making a name for yourself in any of the climate verticals. That could come back and hurt you, as opposed to really making a name for yourself in the energy space, learning the energy space, kind of a little bit of that. And obviously there'll be more, but those are some high level examples. It'll be a good one. You should attend if you're unsure. Subtle plug.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, so for today, Natalie's going to start with what is climate tech. She'll provide some industry insights. You'll determine your why. So why do you want to work in climate? And a lot of job seekers have a broad idea, but we want to really narrow that and focus it so it has more impact when you're talking to decision makers. You'll get to map your ikigai or your career purpose. This helps you also figure out your why and helps you communicate more effectively with recruiters and hiring managers and other people. There'll be an activity around that, so you'll actually sketch out your ikigai map. Then we'll move into breakout rooms where you'll practice sharing your career story. And this is a safe space to practice, to make mistakes, to do a lot of ers and ums and to stumble, not have it perfectly polished. So this is a good low stake setting where you can practice telling your career story. And then we'll end with a Q&A.
Perfect. Cool. So into climate tech, I'm assuming a lot of you know this since you're already on your way to transitioning to climate. But again, I think it's good to kind of go over the basics again and make sure we have some foundation. So what is climate tech? If you don't know, there's a lot of different definitions out there due to its recent emergence and its rapidly changing landscape. But when we think of climate tech at Climate People, we think of three broader categories: emissions reduction, climate adaptation, and carbon removal. And essentially any technological service, whether that's software, a web-based tool, a satellite, the list goes on, that is working to eliminate, remove, or repurpose or reduce the harms of climate change is considered a climate product. So kind of going back to those three broader categories. Emissions reduction is, as it sounds, it's any technology that is reducing emissions. So that's your electric vehicles, that is your wind turbines, your solar panels, and so on and so forth. Then there's climate adaptation, which says the effects of climate change are already here. We have to be resilient in the face of them. So that's your fireproofing, your floodproofing, your drones that are putting out wildfires, so on and so forth. And then lastly, carbon removal. Again, as it sounds, any technology that is removing carbon. So that's your carbon captures, your carbon sequestrations, your turning CO2 into diamonds. Again, the list goes on, but that's kind of the gist of it. So any technology that is removing or reducing the harms of climate change and falls into one of those categories can be a climate tech product. So what's a climate job? This is kind of the foundation for everything at Climate People and everything that I talk about. So when we think of climate jobs, I encourage you to not think of what I initially thought of a niche environmental sector. Instead, I encourage you to think of a repositioning of the entire global economy. So the way we go about doing anything today, we can view that with a climate lens. So we think of those climate sectors that were on that first slide. We have like the built environment. So currently we're building buildings, obviously, but when we think of climate tech innovations in the built environment, it's how can we build buildings while thinking of carbon emissions? So that's your green cement, you're replacing steel with other innovations, even as simple as like LED lights, all of that. But any person who's working at any step at those companies is working a climate job. So again, if you're working on the wind turbines, if you're just installing them, if you're designing them, if you're marketing them, again, list continues to go on. Any of those people are working a climate job. So it's not just the environmentalists and the scientists, it's every person at every step of the way. But also it continues to be broader than that. Climate jobs aren't simply limited to climate tech. It's also making your job a climate job. A lot of people work at Fortune 500 companies and they don't want to leave these roles to go get a job at a climate startup. And that's totally okay. It makes a lot of sense. So you got to think about it in the lens of corporations have a lot of power. So how can I continue to do my day-to-day job at this corporation, but focusing on making it more climate oriented? Could you start a green team? Could you start a composting and recycling initiative? Again, the options are limitless as long as you're thinking about the greater impact of that. So quickly look at the climate funding. As we all know, last year was a pretty hard time to be in the job market in any regard, whether you're trying to hire, whether you're recruiting, whether you're a job seeker. Honestly, it just was pretty hard. And I definitely feel all of you in that regard. And I have found for myself that when I kind of look at the rhyme behind the reason and the funding, it makes all of that hardship a little bit less daunting because I understand why things happened the way that they did. And then also can look at the trajectory for the coming year and again, give myself some hope for what's coming. So kind of what happened last year. Industry growth limitations, there was a lot of layoffs. So that meant that people were hesitant to hire and there's a lot more job seekers coming into climate because of the big layoffs in tech. Startup hiring concerns, because there was a cut in funding, hiring managers and founders were scared to bring more people onto their team. They were kind of holding onto those precious cash reserves and they were not hiring. They were posting what we call unicorn candidates. They had the job postings up just in case this absolute perfect person came to them. But quite frankly, they had no intention of hiring. So a little bit of misleading job postings, diverse industry needs. As I touched on, climate isn't just this one little sector, it's a reframing of the entire global economy. So the job seeking and the hiring needs in transportation are going to look starkly different than they would in energy. So it's a little bit harder to navigate on both the job seeking and the hiring side. And the application overload. Last year, a lot of AI tools made it super easy to apply to jobs. There's tools out there you can click apply and it automatically applies you to 100 jobs. So companies just saw an influx in applications and they weren't looking at them. So it goes back to Mona's point about networking and trying other routes and simply applying because it's really hard to stand out from 900 people. And it's quite frankly, it's just luck. So that's a little bit of what happened last year. But what's happening this year? 2024 is already seeing an increase in funding and compared to early months of last year. So hopefully some of those concerns will die down a little bit. And then also just strategic approaches. And that's why we're all here today. We're going to outline some guidance and some tactical things that you can do to hopefully help you stand out. And if you follow that, 2024 is going to be a much more optimistic job search market for you. Perfect. So what's your why?
I couldn't agree more, Natalie. So you can help your job search by determining your why. So why climate? And if you take the time to really dive deep on that, I mean, most people, have a generic one-liner that they can pull out. But if you take the time to really reflect, reassess, think about how you explain this to other people, it can make your job search a little easier. It can make it more productive. And it helps you tell a unique story to stand out, convincing and memorable story for recruiters and hiring managers. So in the chat, what's an interview question that will alert you that employers want to understand your why? What are some interview questions you've heard where you can slip in your why? You can come off mute too if you're more comfortable doing that. Why are you interested in this role? Absolutely, Bertha. What's another one? Let's see if we can come up with another one. Why are you interested in this role? So by you describing your why, they're able to assess if you're a good fit, if you're the right person to hire. What gets you excited? Love it, Megan. What are you looking for in your next role? Why are you looking to leave your current role? Nice. Another one is, tell me about yourself. This is a perfect opportunity to explain your why. So they want to know, they want to feel, they want to see your climate enthusiasm. So why climate? Why their company? They need to feel authentically that their org is your top pick. And if they don't feel that, they're going to go with another candidate. So it's a great opportunity to explain why you are the person to hire for their open role. And they want to know why now. So why weren't you looking a year ago? Or why aren't you going to be looking in 6 months? What's unique about this moment that's driving your interest in climate? So sharpening your why is twofold. It can help with your job search, and it can make for more impactful conversations, whether it's through networking, maybe in coffee chats, when you're at meetups, maybe when you're doing some volunteer work, and then more importantly, when you're interviewing. So let's sharpen your why. Let's sharpen your why today. All right, so you can craft your career story by connecting your dots. Hiring managers, recruiters are very busy people. Like Natalie said, they can be assessing hundreds of applicants. There just aren't enough hours in a week to carefully sort through everyone's materials. So we want to make sure that we're telling a very clear, concise story in all of our collateral. So resume, LinkedIn, cover letters. And you can do that. You can stand out by making it crystal clear in those communications that you are the right person. So we want to allow them to scan the resume in less than 10 seconds, sometimes 7, 8 seconds. We want them to clearly understand that they need to call you. And it's up to us. We're in control of that, right? We control our narratives. We can influence others with how we present ourselves in our resumes and when we talk to people. It helps to narrow your climate solutions. So, are you interested in food and ag, carbon solutions, transportation? So you want to be using the industry lingo. You want to present yourself as someone who understands the industry and the pain points of the company. And we want to speak their language. And the job ad, that job description, has all the keywords that you can use to tell a convincing story. So we want to narrow our focus. And we want to talk the company's language. We want to make sure that there's overlap between what we say we do and care about and what they're needing and wanting. You can weave in your hard and soft transferable skills. So a lot of people here today probably have not worked in climate, and you're wondering, how do I get a job if I've never worked in climate? It's through those hard and soft transferable skills and current things that you're doing. So maybe you're working on a certificate with Climate Base or Terra. Maybe you're doing a special project or doing some pro bono work. Maybe you're volunteering. It's those transferable skills and what you're currently doing to show, to demonstrate that you can hit the ground running day one. So what new and previous skills do you bring to the target role? And you want to amplify that. You're not hiding your previous experience. You're showing, you're connecting the dots for your reader, how those skills, your hard and soft skills, work for their needs, their team. And you want to practice using the present, past, and future format in your storytelling. It's a nice way to focus your energy, especially if you get nervous. And people are familiar with that format. It's a storytelling format. It's more than just a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're actually controlling the flow of information and what you want to end on. So that means when you're describing what you do, starting with the present, where are you working? What other climate things are you working on? If you're at Climate Base or Terra, talk about that briefly. Go to your past experience and education, brief overview. They don't want a whole they don't want a whole history. What I find is that a lot of career changers spend too much time in the past because that's their comfort zone. You actually want to spend the bulk of your time in what you want to do, which can be a little scary. It's a shift in mindset. But you want to get and stay on how you bring value to their company. And if you can practice that a little bit today, it'll help sharpen your 90-second elevator pitch. So tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? Questions like that.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So here are some resources to kind of bring everything Mona just said to life. And I think the key is what she takes away and kind of how that applies to these resources is when you are telling your career story, when you are giving your elevator pitch, you are not saying, I have done this, I have done this, I have done that. They don't care. I mean, maybe they do. They don't really care as much as they would if you were to take what you have done in the past and then directly apply it to what they are building. So that is the key. I've done this. It may be in a different industry, but it translates to what you're doing for this reason. And this is the impact that I could have. Awesome. So we are going to share this slide deck. I'm not going to go through everything on this slide right now. I know it's a lot of links, but it's just built in here so that you can click on these, kind of come back and really dive deep into everything we presented. But essentially, as Mona said, it's key to pinpoint which climate solutions and what climate verticals you're interested in doing. Some great resources for doing that are Project Drawdown Solutions Library. They have hundreds of solutions in there. Kind of scroll through, see which ones interest you. Again, just kind of do a quick glance at all of them and pinpoint a few that you want to dive into. Probably the most comprehensive resource I have yet to see in climate is Nicole Kellner's So You Want to Work in Climate. It's a spreadsheet that includes hundreds of resources of everything you can imagine, from job boards to recruiters to different solutions, everything. So definitely check that out. And then Climate People has a brief overview of the sectors if you're trying to dive deep into what interests you, if you want to kind of look at Nicole Kellner's and Project Drawdowns with a different lens. Also, once you've pinpointed the solutions, a lot of people have a hard time finding the companies that are working in the solutions. Like, you can't just Google energy companies and get a list of climate energy companies. It's not optimized that way. So Climate Tech VC has a running list of climate accelerators. The vast majority of climate accelerators focus on a few climate solutions. So if you're interested in energy, you could go to Activate, for example, look at all their portfolio companies, and then it's outlining a whole selection of companies that are working on energy. Climate Tech List is a really comprehensive company board. They have some jobs, but it has like almost every climate company out there on there. You can filter by funding stage, you can filter by solution, so on and so forth. Net Zero Insights and Sightline Climate are just data aggregates. They really show all the funding allocation and help you kind of see where the money's going and some high level trends. A lot of climate specific job boards on here. And then I wrote a blog on kind of all of this that outlines it. So again, I'll share all these links, but high level, how to kind of do some of those things that Mona just mentioned. Awesome.
All right. So we can sharpen our career purpose and how we communicate about it by using the Japanese concept of ikigai, which roughly translates to a reason for being. And there are four qualities to ikigai. So the first one is, what do you love? What gets you excited? How do you like to spend your time? Um, what what sort of things do you seek out? And it's not just in your professional life, but in your private life. So start to think about, what is it that you love, and think broadly. This is brainstorming, and then we can narrow. The second quality is, what are you good at? So what sorts of things come easily to you? Are there things at work or in your private life where people come to you for advice? A lot of times when things feel effortless, it's because we're good at it and so we enjoy it. So start to reflect on all the things that you're good at. Another part is, what can you be paid for? So a lot of times people will think about their previous experience, but it could be unpaid work that has the potential to become paid work as well. So your volunteer work, pro bono projects, things like that. And then last, what does the world need? And a lot of job seekers start with the job boards to see what the world is asking for, what they're looking for. Often there's a need that's not being met, and maybe you have an idea and you decide to go the entrepreneurial route. There are lots of ways to think about what the world needs, how to meet those needs, and then maybe something needs to be disrupted, maybe something needs to be improved as well. When you combine the different qualities, so what you love, what you're good at, when you have overlap between those two things, we say you have your passion. When there's overlap between what you can be paid for and what you're good at, we say that's your profession. When there's overlap between what the world needs and what you can be paid for, we say that's a vocation or a calling in life. And when there's overlap between what you love and what the world needs, this can become a personal mission statement. A lot of times people don't think about their personal mission statements. This can be really helpful in telling your career story. When you combine profession and passion, people often report feelings of satisfaction, but maybe also some uselessness. When you combine vocation and profession, there may be a sense of feeling comfortable, but also maybe some emptiness. When we combine vocation and mission, Sometimes people report excitement or complacency, but there's this sense of uncertainty. And then if we combine mission and passion, people may experience delight and fullness, but no wealth because they're not getting paid for it. So when we combine our passion, our profession, vocation, mission, when we have overlap in those spheres, we say we found our career purpose or our ikigai. What we'd like to do now is for you to reflect on your own Ikigai map. So draw out the four parts, write down what are you good at, what can you be paid for, what the world needs, and what you love. And then for each area, start to write out or map out your climate solutions. So your different climate solutions might go in what you love or what the world needs. Think about your transferable skills, those hard and soft skills that you already have, maybe new ones that you're learning. Where do those fit in? So it could be what you're good at. You might have some transferable skills under what you're good at. Think about your target job titles. So that might fall under what you can be paid for or what the world needs. Also include your hobbies and your interest, really anything that comes to mind. So let's take about 5 minutes for you to start to map out how these different elements in your life fit into your career purpose. So let's take about 5 minutes or so. All right, let's come together. A few questions for you, which you can think about yourself or you can drop it in the chat. Did you find you have some Ikigai overlap? Did you discover something new or maybe something was confirmed or validated for you? Did you have any overlap? Throw it in the chat. Yes, no, not sure. Scott says yes. Great, Scott. Unsure, that's okay. We're just starting, right? We're just sketching this out. We're not going to have it all figured out in this moment. Just starting to plant the seed to think about how you talk about your career purpose. Unsure. Hopefully in the next activity, you'll get to experiment a bit more to see maybe where your storytelling is a little weak. So let's go to our next activity, Natalie. So we are going to move to breakout rooms into groups of 4. Again, we're not expecting any perfection. This is just good practice, nice space to make mistakes. But you want to use your Ikigai map that you just sketched out, and you want to share your first and your last name if you're comfortable. Now, the reason I'm emphasizing the last name is often women, when they're making introductions, don't share their last name. They just share their first name. So if you're comfortable, share your last name as well. Share your why rough draft, right? It's not perfect, but your rough draft or your career purpose. You want to remember to talk about your hard and your soft transferable skills. Perfectly okay if you don't have them all outlined, but hopefully you hit on at least one or two. And the types of problems you want to solve. So those career solutions. If you can, this isn't for everyone today, but if you can, practice that present, past, and future format. Feel free to modify this activity as you see fit in the breakout room. We'll take about 10 minutes total, maybe closer to 8 because I see we're tight on time. So each person will take about 90 seconds or so, a minute, no more than 2. And to get this going quickly, let's have the person with the shortest first name go first. Does everyone understand what we're doing in the breakout room? You can come off mute or throw it in the chat if we need some clarification. Basically, it's a 90-second elevator pitch.
Awesome. It looks like we are all back. Mona, are you still with us?
Yes, here I am. Hello. Great breakout room. I really enjoyed participating. Thanks so much. All right, so we'll go a little quickly so there's time for Q&A, but just start to think about how that went for you. So on a scale from 1 to 6, how was sharing your career story? 6 would be it was effortless and enjoyable, amazing, whatever word you want to throw in there. 1 would be it was agonizing, terrible, didn't do well. So think about where you are on that scale. Was expressing your why easy, challenging, or about as expected? And reflect on why it felt that way. For a lot of people, it's because it's the first time they're doing it. They haven't practiced it a lot. Um, and then how can you get to a 6? So what do you need to do specifically so you're feeling more confident and it comes across a little more effortlessly? All right. So what's one small step you can take today to enhance your career story and make it small? So maybe you practice in front of the mirror or with your dog, or maybe you do some research to figure out other climate solutions you might be interested in. Maybe you decide to talk with a friend or someone in your family about what you were doing. Maybe you read an article or you review one of Natalie's resources to generate some more ideas. But what's one small thing? And think about how you can hold yourself accountable to make sure that it gets done today. Because everyone gets excited in these workshops and then they leave and they get busy with life and they forget to do it. So before you leave, think about how you can hold yourself to make sure that it actually gets done. And we hope that you connect with other participants here today and that you start to build a climate community. So reach out to me, Natalie, other participants on LinkedIn, and let's strengthen your community.
Yeah, on that note, I'm dropping a link to a Google form in the chat. If you want to connect with people that were in the call in your breakout room, whoever it may be, fill out that form, and then I will share the responses with everyone who filled out the form. So it's a few questions, your LinkedIn, your email, all of that. But it'll be a great next step if you want to kickstart your networking with any of the people that are in this call today. So fill out that form, and then, yeah, cool. Perfect. Anything else, Mona, that you had before we go to questions?
No, I think that's about it. Hope to see you all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, yeah, we have a few minutes for questions. So this is your time. If you have one, if you have a question, yep, perfect. You got the idea, Bertha. I was going to say raise your hand or drop it in the chat. But Bertha, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Hi, thank you for doing this session, Natalie and Mona. Really appreciate it. My question goes back to earlier in the hour where we talked about finding our climate niche and really being making a name for yourself there. Given the fact that I don't really know what I might like doing, um, I don't really know what my niche might be. So how is a way to work, what is a way to work around that?
Yeah, I'll take this one first, and then Mona, you can add any context if that works. So yeah, the whole idea of niching down, you obviously have to start somewhere. If you're just getting introduced to the world of climate, you're gonna have no idea. So that's when I recommend that you do kind of open all the doors and really explore. So a great place to start doing that is Work on Climate. If you're not a part of Work on Climate, I would highly recommend joining. It's a community with thousands of people in it, and it really helps you kind of lay that foundation. So I would start doing that, start meeting people, and then look at those solutions and really just start seeing what interests you, and then start exploring the companies and the jobs and if there's a fit. So I don't know what your background. What is your background in? Like what
I'm
industry?
an accountant in the
Okay.
finance industry.
Okay, so start looking at those different sectors. And if you're seeing accountant people in the space or if you're seeing roles, then you're probably on the right track. Whereas if you're looking at like innovative, like fake meats or whatever it may be, and you're not seeing any accounting roles, that probably means that that industry is a little bit too new to have those more accounting type of roles. So again, I would just not narrow yourself down until you have an idea and kind of have a grasp of climate. Anything to add to that, Mona?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I unfortunately my internet was a little unstable, so I didn't hear all of that, but couldn't agree more, Natalie. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
Great advice.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bertha. Cool. Another question that we have in the chat is, what's a good way to learn about the climate verticals? Yeah, definitely. So on that slide deck, I'm going to share this out in an email. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for the email. But a great place to explore the climate verticals is Project Drawdown's list of climate solutions. I'll actually just drop it in the chat now. It will tell you all about the solutions and what's out there. That would be a great place to start. Here it is. Perfect. Is there a link to work on climate? Sure. Oh, no, wrong person. Yeah, I'll send that over. Perfect. Any other questions while I do that? Oh, Bertha, someone saw some finance jobs. I'm not sure if you saw that, so that's awesome. Oh, thank you.
Power of community in action.
I know. Cool. Well, we got 3 more minutes. If anyone has a question, speak now. If not, keep your eyes peeled for that follow-up email. As I've said, the slide deck will be included, a recording will be included, and then all the resources that Mona and I have covered today will be there as well. A question that came in though, do you have any suggestions for how to find a volunteer opportunity?
I can take this one, Natalie.
Yeah, go for it.
So there are some great websites that match your skill set and interests, which is nice because it helps you figure out your climate solutions. So Volunteer Match and also idealist.org are great resources. I noticed some of the big job boards are also opening up volunteer experiences, so you can also check LinkedIn, Indeed, and other boards as well.
Awesome. I didn't know about this. I'm taking note right now. Those are cool. Perfect. Yeah. Only thing I would add to that is work on climate again. Gonna continue to promote them. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities in there if you're looking for something that's directly related to climate. They're entirely volunteer run. I know they do require like I think 3 hours a week, so make sure you have the capacity for that. And then local organizations, I'm sure those 2 websites that Mona mentioned have that, but I feel like a lot of people forget that there's so many opportunities locally to get involved with climate action. So look into that as well. I don't know the specifics because I don't know where they're located, but you can find them probably on the internet.
To add to that, there are a lot of remote possibilities, especially based on certain skill sets. So be sure to check out remote opportunities if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of volunteer opportunities.
True. Awesome. And then Anna says Taproot is another great one. Thank you, Anna. And then Heidi says Patagonia has a wonderful volunteer service network as well. So lots of opportunities out there. And thanks for wanting to get involved. Perfect. So somehow we are already at time. That flew by, but thank you all again so much for joining us. I just dropped a link to the networking forum in the chat. So again, fill that out if you can, and then more people can get to know each other. And then also make sure you join us next month at March 22nd at 12 p.m. Eastern for our next session on transferable skills. So make sure you join us for that. Have any questions at all, feel free to drop either me or Mona a line on LinkedIn or email. I'll drop my email in the chat. And yeah, we really look forward to seeing y'all soon. Thank you again. And thank you, Mona. I feel like this was invaluable. I learned so much and I really, really appreciate you taking all the time and effort into this.
Same here, Natalie. Happy job searching, everyone.
Bye, everybody.